Hey everyone, welcome to Dental All Stars. I'm your host today, Alex Nottingham, founder and CEO of All Star Dental Academy, and I have an exciting guest for us to look into today. Her name is Sandy Jahmi Burg, and she's a certified focusing trainer and coordinator in training for the International Focusing Institute. That's focusing.org. And as a focusing trainer, she coaches one-on-one and facilitates groups in learning these interrelationship skills. As a coordinator in training, she offers a certification program via TIFI for those wanting to guide or teach focusing skills themselves. Sandy has a bachelor's degree in medical technology. She's volunteer coordinator for a 3,300-acre national nature park, trained in permaculture, offering sustainable landscape design services, and founded a nonprofit for wellness called Circle Towards Wholeness. Gosh, I wish I was as good as she is with plants. She's a mother of 3 young adults. She currently lives with her husband in an intentional community in a small music art tourist town in the Appalachian Mountains called Floyd, Virginia. Sandy is the author of Smart View Stories and Emotional Literacy, a series of books that model ways families and communities can support each other in feeling safe, practicing these relational skills, and finding ways forward in these times of change. The stories use concepts of focusing and neuroscience to bring to life typical dynamics of our inner world. Welcome, Sandy.
Thank you, Alex.
Excellent. So we're going to get into focusing. That's the topic for this podcast. And I love focusing. Focusing is a skill. You're my focusing teacher. I've been through Sandy's 4 levels of courses, and I use focusing. And I also am honored to be able to be coached by Sandy periodically, and even Heather, my wife, our VP of training at All Star Dental Academy. She also takes your courses. So tell us, Sandy, a little bit about focusing. What is this focusing thing?
So focusing, the name, it's an experience, and I like to say like a set of natural skills that essentially a lot of us, without practice, it's a way of using our brain, but without practice, we've become a little rusty. And the word was essentially something Eugene Genlin came up with. And he is first a philosopher and also a psychologist who worked a lot at the University of Chicago with Carl Rogers. And his big thing was, and he also, as a child, was kind of called to this, but what he discovered when he was doing his research in the 50s is that when someone was in therapy for counseling, it wasn't something that the therapist did. It wasn't a particular technique that they used, and it still isn't. Like, this research has been repeated many times. It was simply some skills that the person walked in the door with. And so someone comes in and they're kind of a natural, and it takes them 1 or 2 sessions and they're, done. Or they're not particularly good at the skills, and so it takes more efforting, to go ahead and get through, whatever is kind of stuck inside. And so essentially, if you practice the skills and you get good at them, you develop, really a sense of trust in yourself, self-empowerment, and how you move through the world, resilience in dealing with changing situations, kind of helpful in today's world.
Sure.
Just the ability to adjust, to the day. So you kind of have this more sense of making life look easy. And we all have seen, or we've worked with people who have, are a little better at that. And
just naturally better at feeling. And I think that it's, especially for a lot of our listeners, dentists and myself, being trained deeply in academia and those things, law degrees, so on, there's just this comfort being thinking, but what about feelings, or even the stuff that in between all that, how to work with that? And I think that's the superpower that a lot of my dentists want these life hacks, these ways to improve their life. And it isn't more thinking. It's almost like trying to think to get rid of thinking, or to, so the world with the superpower is in this emotional world, this feeling world. So you talked a little bit about where it came from. Jenlin kind of uncovered or put a name to it, and it really was there. And we're how can we sense, because focusing, like Jenlin says, is that something that we do naturally. So both how can we sense this, what this is, and how is it different from meditation or intuition? Like I have a gut sense. Like is that it? So what is this focusing, and how does it differentiate between these other concepts?
Yeah, so there's another term Jenlin came up with, which is just like filtered, especially the last 10 years, into all sorts of, you know, empowerment or health type areas. And it's called a felt sense.
Felt
And
sense.
so the felt sense is something that arises freshly. And it's based on a particular situation, or it has like, you know, a container, and it has some kind of deeper knowing than we're able to access easily, like right now.
Yeah, I remember
Like,
in his book,
takes
he
a
talks
pause.
about it's kind of like, and this is where I guess for those listening, because I also want to make sure that in the skills we see what the benefit is. It's like when you meet somebody and you can just sense a whole, and I'm using another word, gestalt. You can sense this whole thing about this person, a lot of data that you couldn't think logically, because you say, oh, that person looks this way, smells this way, acts this way, and you takes you it's like a linear thinking. So it's a linear thinking process, which is how we normally think, whereas for this focusing is a whole body
Oh, yeah.
embodied sense. And what's really cool about that is you can process more data. It's almost like, and I'm going to compare with computers, that you have certain bandwidth or speed, like a highway, like you have, or even you can say about like broadband versus dial-up years ago. So it's a small highway or a big highway. So focusing, instead of being the small highway, was thinking is a part of it. Focusing, it's, you can bring the data. This felt sense is a large highway of data that you're bringing in right away, and you're able to go, wow, I feel something. But then the thinking didn't catch up. Often people, and this is where I kind of want to differentiate between a um an intuition versus a felt sense, because intuition says, oh, I should have known better, I felt something and I didn't act. I went with something else. Now, is that the intuition? I say it's intuition, or did I have a felt sense? How are those two things different, or are they
So,
similar?
so an intuition would be probably a part of the felt sense. The felt sense is bigger, kind of
Oh,
like
it's
how you
bigger.
said, like it's the
Okay,
broadband. But it'll include intuition. It'll include our, knowing that we've learned our previous thoughts from
I
what
see.
we think we know. But it also includes, all sorts of stuff that can go just basics about being a human being that we learned, way when we were a child. Cultural things are kind of embedded in there, cultural assumptions, but we can see that we basically learned how to see them, and then we can make wiser, choices.
Decisions, because we have more information, and
Yeah. So,
it's not just thinking, it's the whole sense of it. And it
and the
almost,
checking back.
and the checking back with,
So
okay,
that's actually what's key. So that's a step that we
because you can
practice.
interact with the felt sense, you can have a relationship with it,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, in fact, that's what we need to do. We need to kind of, with our whole body, like we develop this way we are toward ourselves. That's like a wonderful host. Like the best host when you go to some, relative's house, the person or an Airbnb that you're just like, oh, I feel so at home here. They just got everything. They got all the. That's what we want to be for ourselves, and then we'll get more of our, more of our knowing feels safe, to voice itself and stuff. And then from there, like we are the one then that can make the what do we want to do here now?
And what about meditation? Because I know when we do some sessions or when you teach, you do a grounding exercises to kind of
Yeah.
like, and it's, you almost get into sort of a meditative state, but meditation is different from this felt sense space. How?
Yeah, so we don't drop down as far.
You don't
So
go
it's
as
interesting,
deep.
like,
Okay.
yeah, it's because we're interacting with ourselves, and that's what's cool. Like this
I
is
see.
when you practice it, it's a life skill, you bring, like you do, to your daily moments, to your tennis playing. Like you
Yeah.
want
That's one
it.
of my hobbies that really listening is playing tennis and dealing with all the things that come up or in business. And it was interesting. It was before Heather and I we were trying to work on a price for an event, and she was getting stuck on something. She goes, "Oh, I feel this, I feel this, I feel like this is too much or this," and I'm like, and I could tell she was merging with a thinking pattern. And so I just said, you know what? Let's stop. We'll come back to it later because it will give your body, give your space time to process and see what comes up, as you say, freshly, because we can get so stuck on one thing that
Yeah,
the now actually another word I bring up in here that we hear about is mindfulness. So before I get to mindfulness, with meditation, I thought that example, you go really deep and you're letting go of thoughts and kind of finding a place where things kind of rise and fall. With focusing, you don't want to go as deep because you want to have some spaciousness so you can interact with what's there. But like I gave an example with Heather, she was so stuck. She was up here.
yeah,
We don't want to go, I don't want to pick on her, I do the same thing, but you don't want to be stuck here, and you don't want to be so low in meditation. You want to be where there's some space that you can actually interact with this and see what comes freshly. Now with mindfulness, is that how does a mindfulness or being mindful and that concept relate to, or do we use that tool mindfulness to be able to work with the felt sense?
yeah. I would say those, like if you have worked on some of those skills, they will make focusing easier for you.
Easier, okay, because
Yeah.
you're mindful
Um,
and you're not, and the things that you teach are, you don't want to merge with something where you think you are it and there's nothing else,
yeah,
and you don't want to fall asleep or meditate. You want to be somewhere in the middle where you can have this fun, you have an interaction with it, and you're big enough to
yeah.
do that. Okay, cool. So tell me about, I think I get the concept. I think people listening, we can relate. How can I, as a listener, benefit personally or as a business person? How can I benefit from this skill?
Okay. So just as a general thing, if we just look at this concept, so if focusing is actually about relationship,
Hmm.
relationship with yourself, it starts with, but it's also then how we're relating with our environment, or other people. Essentially, almost every moment of our day is relational in some way. So it's huge how it can really kind of change our experience of life. So that's just a background. And again, until you've had tried it, it's hard to feel what
Sure.
that means. But then for so another basic one that's really helpful is working with our inner critic. So we all
Mm,
generally have an inner critic, and an interesting thing about, like, again, when you develop a relationship with an inner critic, it's really not trying to, it can feel like it's trying to beat us down. It's not trying to beat us down. It's actually wanting so much for us to be
mm.
successful.
It's just
And
stuck. It's just stuck.
but it learned how to make us be successful by what you say, like our culture.
Sure.
It like when we were younger, and in general, the culture, at least definitely from my age, um, I think still pretty much it's common that there's this sense of that we have to be, kind of ragged on, you know,
Mm,
uh, just it predicts. It's like a parent who says to their child, as they're going out the door, you're going to catch, death of cold without your coat. Well, that makes it sound like the parent wants the child to, you know, get a cold without their coat. And they don't really want that. They're just setting a fear pattern. So a lot of
right.
it,
Oh,
it's simple patterns
I
that we
see. So
somehow,
we get stuck in the critic as a pattern that we get stuck in as other patterns, anger
yeah,
and whatever. And that when you can see things freshly and new, felt sense, that personally that can help you
they
make better
change
choices.
actually.
Yeah.
It, the
And
it
enter
changes.
the it changes. And we're going to do a little exercise at the end about the it. Is that, like, again, I spend a lot of time with Heather, so we're always interacting, and it's interesting. It is relationship because there's a lot of things in my head, and I'm sure a lot of people too. mine especially, right? So it's me relating to what's in my mind, whether it's a critic, whatever it is, and how I relate. And then now I have another person that they are having to deal with their own mind, and then we have to find a relationship. So we do need spaciousness, right? And meditation, those
Huge.
things calm us down. But then how do we go and get and do the work of finding resolution and solutions and innovation? So personally, and then moving to business, we can now have innovation because people continue to think the same way without seeing things freshly. And that's where these focusing skills can help in business, because now I can innovate. I can see something new. Because otherwise, if I keep the same patterns, I'm going to get the same result in a relationship and in business, right?
Yeah, and so actually, you reminded me, like, we can kind of go back to Genlin a bit. So he was first and foremost a philosopher, and the key, he has a philosophy, which is absolutely like just mind-boggling. It just really can give you some hope about the world and just change. But a key aspect of it is that change requires being in a relationship.
Interesting.
And yeah, so we start wrapping around that, and that's what we do, is we practice that first within ourselves.
And define, okay, relation. You mentioned this a few times.
Yeah, so that's the spaciousness.
We're
Or I like to say,
spacious.
like,
Okay.
so like if you
Relationship
have
with what?
with, for instance, if you hear something saying you're going to mess up, that you
This
get
is a
into a
thought. You have a
relationship with
thought.
that.
I'm going to mess up, or you're going to mess
Yeah,
up.
and
Okay.
within this, yeah, and rather than believe it, which means normally we just see, like, I am my thoughts.
We can believe it or we can ignore it. Those are the two choices, right?
Or we can get into a relationship,
Or we
and
build a
let it
relationship.
go.
Here I am
Here I am.
witnessing, watching. Now, again, in meditation and mindfulness, I see the thought, hello, let it come, let it go. Focusing, you're saying, I see the thought, hello, I like to get to know you. Welcome. Let's build a relationship.
Go.
Right? What is it that is causing? And then eventually this thought or pattern starts to reveal more data to you to see what's going on. It's maybe a warning system or something that's going on for you to build a relationship with. So that's okay. That's cool. Yeah. I remember once, and it was from you and another teacher, Dr. Strong was said this before. I remember you met Dr. Strong, and he said that you can only heal something if you can if you're in a relationship. Everything's got to be some sort of relationship. Same thing what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So okay, so I think we have a great sense of this. Again, this is deep feeling type things, because it's hard to describe it's hard to describe something bigger, because a felt sense is bigger than what you can articulate. You have to
It's
feel
always
it.
more than you already know.
So we're trying to articulate something bigger when words are just one aspect of it. So maybe as we kind of because what I want to do is maybe we could do the quick exercise.
Okay.
And then I want people to learn more about you and how they can get some of your training, because you do training virtually, Zoom. You can go anywhere. You people all over the world that take your training, and I like people to know about your resource because I think it's great. And I still take the training. So tell me, let's do a quick little exercise. Tell me about this and how can we do this? And by the way, if you're driving, you probably don't want to do this while you're driving, I assume. Listen to the podcast. Can you do it while you're driving? Just be careful.
Yeah, well,
let's see. Just don't go too deep. Pay attention. Okay.
Right.
Just,
simple as,
I want to put a warning label so we get in trouble. Stop the car if you're listening in the car or wherever you are. Do it without too much distraction. All right, go ahead, Sandy.
Right. Yeah. So essentially, yeah, whatever we are doing, we can just kind of become aware. But so one instance, actually, when I'm driving, that does help me. I'm thinking, sometimes all of a sudden we realize we're gripping the wheel.
Oh, it's hard.
Like,
oh, really?
Maybe because, there's just a lot happening right now or something. And just acknowledging, also
with a lot of dentists that are listening with TMJ, and just grinders and biting. I do a lot of biting. You don't realize how much you're grinding your teeth. And that's just a way you can be aware of that. And what is that telling you? The biting is part of a bigger whole of something else that's maybe underneath, that's feeling insecure or anxious. It's happening Because we
Yeah.
do know this, right? We know, and dentists will say, we know patients bite. Typically, it's not just physiologically, there's some psychological thing or nerve or something that's causing them to bite a lot. And or they're type A personalities like myself, we bite a lot, grind. And so, well, yes, we give a mouth guard or something, retainer to kind of soften that. But what's happening? Why is that happening? And how we build a relationship? Go ahead. That was a good
Yeah.
example.
So no, so that's right. You can use focusing to build a relationship with. There'll be the something that actually physically does the grinding.
Right.
So the body movement, and there'll always be something that doesn't like that we do that.
Yeah.
And interestingly, so it's actually really simple, but there's this triangle
Oh, I
that can
like
really
this.
get us, and that's when we think we're our wiser self. So like there can actually be like this awareness, and it essentially doesn't like conflict. So it doesn't like
Well,
that
what I like what you've
we
taught
grind and we feel
before,
bad about it.
what I like
Like
what you've taught before is just, and we're not gonna go too much deep into it. You talk about this in your courses, but there's a something about something, right? And then there's different parts of us that, like you say, they're reacting to something. There's something that doesn't like that we're reacting to something. So you have this duality going on in our mind. And that's again why meditation is a great tool, mindfulness is a great tool, because it does allow you to step back. But what focusing does is it allows you to now do the work with it, to
and
interact
yeah,
with it,
we call
right?
it like holding space.
Correct.
Like
Correct.
I'm bigger than all three of these.
And when you're in that space, you can do the work.
Yeah.
You can go to that work. Okay, so exercise, the it. What is the it? And what do we got to do?
Yeah. So let's go ahead. Like I'm gonna just give an example and
Okay.
find something. Okay. Yeah, so you kind of notice I'm in a room with the fan. So I'm
Okay.
in Austin right now in an upstairs room with a lot of sun coming in. And some of you may know that Austin has had record temperatures. Anyway, it'll be like, 95 out there right now.
Well, welcome to
And
South Florida. It's hot here too.
yeah, so there's this sense of something in me. I can really feel that, like I'm okay, and like I'm really grateful for the breeze, like it's like thank you for the breeze, thank you. So there's something in me that potentially, right, could overheat.
Sure.
And yeah, so I just like let that know I see it or I hear it and all
So you're
that.
acknowledging it.
Yeah.
It.
And
What is
it's
it? Does it
interesting.
have to be something? So in this
Well,
exercise,
in
we're
this
just
case, it's something that monitors my body temperature. Like if
okay.
we can get, like, I mean, that's how I understand it. And I'm just appreciating, right? It's also essentially always looking out for me, but I can actually feel it relax now because
Ah, I
I'm
see.
saying hello to it, because before that, it's like, it's getting hotter in here, it's getting hotter. And I might start, sweating or something. But now that I've said that to it, it's like, oh, she knows.
Oh, interesting. So the exercise is whenever you notice something arise, you can say, and this is in the handout, and you give a handout. And by the way, if those are interested, they can email you. You can send them this handout that I'm looking at one of your handouts,
Okay.
acknowledging it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll give your email address and they can
Okay.
get from you this handout, or you can put it on your webpage, whatever it is. But acknowledging it. So you're saying almost, I'm acknowledging it, or how I feel towards the fan, it's giving you a
That which is monitoring my body temperature
okay.
is
And
trying to get my
you can just
attention.
say, I'm acknowledging it.
Yeah.
I'm acknowledging it, or this or that. Yeah.
So
Okay.
why don't you try it? Like
Okay.
find
What am I?
something
Okay.
that's
What
trying
am
to
I?
get your attention right now.
Ooh. Yeah. Now I hear the AC, not a fan, but I hear like the kind of humming of the AC, but that's a sensation or sound. Um, and then I do sense like this quietness.
Mm.
And then I feel something within me that likes that. It. What else should I be looking for? I got that. And it's cool. As I say that, as I acknowledge those things with that silence, everything kind of like slows down. Yeah. Cause I think before our call, I was like, I had other meetings. So my mind's like moving a lot. And then kind of like, as I start acknowledging these things, like it's almost starts to slow the mind down a little bit. So that was pretty cool. And I'm acknowledging the slowing of the mind, and I'm acknowledging the appreciation for that.
Yeah. Yeah. It generally, as we acknowledge this stuff, we can bring our attention more to whatever's happening in the moment.
Yeah, that's a cool.
These things,
You never taught me this exercise. I like this exercise. This is new. What class is this? I never got this one.
I
You
know, yeah, these are talks I do, but
This is
right,
great. I love
it's a
it.
little different than is in our class.
No, but it's good. It's a good way. That's a nice little exercise. And like I said, we'll get that to you. Sandy, let me get some more. Tell me about your courses. How can people get in contact with you? How can they learn more about focusing? And yes, I know there's a focusing institute and those things, but I want to know about
Yeah.
you. I'm reading through this bio and you're so sweet. You put all these other trainers. Okay. You're the best. So people want the best. They
Well,
want you.
you may want some people, if you've just heard about focusing and if you
Uh-huh.
don't have a lot of background on this, you might want to read a book or something.
Okay.
That's why I put that.
What's that
And
like? Which book do you recommend? Jenlin's book?
yeah, probably either Jenlin's book or there's a book called The Power of Focusing. So either a book called Focusing, just
Okay, so
Focusing by Eugene
you can go on
Jenlin,
at Amazon, type in focusing and look for Eugene Jenlin. That's one book. Dentists love
or
books.
Ann Weiser Cornell, The
And
Power of
Wiser
Focusing.
and Wiser
Those are both,
Cornell, The Power. Yeah. I think I read both. They're both really, really good.
yeah, they're just
Um,
good, simple introductions. I want to say, so what Jenlin will say is that, his primary contribution was coming up with a way to teach these
mhm.
skills. So essentially, again, they're natural skills, but there hasn't been like, and what I love, like, it's just these, like the way I teach now, it's like comfortable to bring into schools, even with the kind of
Yeah.
controversy we have in our schools now. This is just basic, it's based on neuroscience and just, using our bodies. It's not, and
It's
so it's
nothing.
really
Yeah, I think
easy.
that's a good point. It's nothing esoteric. It's nothing woo-woo.
I mean,
It's
it can be
it
like
can be
people
if you
can
want it
use
to
them in
be.
different ways if that's the way they
Well,
choose
you know
to,
what's interesting? What's cool
you
about
know,
focusing in a lot of disciplines, look at dentistry. You have specialists, periodontists,
yeah,
endodontists, so on. In focusing that, and this is not what I mean, you have a focus in neuroscience, but people then take focusing and they go into different areas. Like
yeah. I
some do
teach
it
basic skills.
right.
Yep.
There are some people that teach it in a religious and they combine religion. Some people like I'm meeting with this group at the Focusing
Dreams.
Institute, Dreams.
Yeah,
There's
you can
one
apply
that
it
you
to
connect
understanding
them.
your dreams. So right. So it can be kind of
There was one that you're connecting me with this tennis pro who's
yeah,
connecting it with tennis. So it's a skill that you can bring. So there's other disciplines out there that you can branch off on. But for those that are listening who are not familiar with focusing, a great place to learn the basics is in your courses. So it's
yeah.
sandyjahmi.com, sandyjahmi.com. And you can learn about your courses. I think you also do private coaching and sessions. We'll put the links on the in the YouTube channel and in the on the webpage so you can find out. And your is email also an effective way to communicate with you too,
Yes.
Sandy? What
Yes.
is your email address?
So the same, Sandy Jahmi
Okay.
at gmail.com. So the
Sandy
same
Jahmi
spelling,
at yeah, so your name, your first name and
middle
your
name,
last name, but don't put the Burg. Just Sandy Jahmi at
Jahmi.
gmail.com, sandyjahmi.com to get information about that. Wonderful. And so again, you teach the core, the 4 basics focusing levels, and you also provide some guided sessions as well for people that are interested.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you
Cool.
kind of start with a session first. And I have one geared toward kind of setting you up to get in the class because
Oh, that's a good idea.
essentially,
Good point. Good point.
yeah, you go away from
Do
the
a
first
session.
session
Do a session. That's
and
right.
then
I
you can
remember that.
decide, like, is this something I want to learn? Because what we do in that session is
That's a
I'll
good
show you
point.
where you were already using the skills.
Oh,
We
I
all
remember
are
that.
already using these skills in some ways. It's just, again, you just make the choice. I'd like to get better at these, at basically inner and outer relational skills. And if that seems valuable to you, then, this is the way to do it. And then from here, so
yeah,
then the other thing is, because we have to kind of unlearn a lot of the ways we're using our body brain right now. It's easier to learn in partnership exercises. So the classes are set up with partnership exercises.
meaning you work with a partner, you're
Work with
assigned
a
different
partner, someone else in
people
your
in the group.
class.
Yeah. And it's very,
Yeah.
and that's a great point. Heather was very nervous about that, and she ended up
Yeah.
loving it. So it's very gentle, very easy. And like I said, I can't more fully endorse. I mean, I fully endorse this is what I'm saying. I fully endorse focusing. I fully endorse Sandy. She's wonderful. I found her from the Focusing Institute. I think it's a great skill set for those that are listening, whether you're a dentist, team member. I think it's great to do this. Anybody, for personal and business benefit. It's a great skill, and I really believe you'll be happier and more successful with these skills. So again, Sandy Jahmi Burg, thank you for being on our show.
Great. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Until next time, go out there and be an all-star, everybody.